Alright, so we are basically in the middle of page AyinBase 13. We start on the line that begins the Ayin Sof. So we're explaining that in the process, in order to bring out the oil for worlds, as we discussed yesterday, very important to understand that even though worlds are basically concealing oil, worlds is mitzias, but that mitzias has to have an element of oil, otherwise it would not persist. This is just like on the simplest, the most obvious thing, a living being, a human being. So he's got every faculty, every one of his capabilities are invested in one or the other part of his body. But that is not what enables it to function. This is not what enables it to function. That is not what sustains it. Chassidus speaks about that one should have his boinus, and his boinus will bring a hisoirus halev, a hisoirus in the heart. The hisboinus and the subsequent hisoirus are very closely correlated. But the reason that there is a resultant hisoirus from a hisboinus is not that hisboinus creates a hisoirus, but because there's an overall godly chayas in the person. So when he hears and he senses a certain union, it awakens it and it comes in the Seder. The seichel doesn't create midas. Midas are testing to the life element in the person, which is the neshama element in the person. But because it's in a guf, in the world, it has to go through a process. First there's his boinus, there is a understanding and so forth. But ultimately, the real chayas is the chayas that is from the highest, so in the source of chayas, the nefesh. The similar union is in the world in general, even though the world is like a mitzias. But the mitzias is not what sustains the world. It is the oil eliki that gives us presence and gives it meaning, and this is what sustains the world. Oil eliki, to sustain world, Elokus and world are, pardon me, as we already discussed, are, as the expression is, in two different worlds. I mean, it's not a world. Elokus is not world, and world is not Elokus. So that in order that the Elokus should give inspiration and chayas and sustenance of the world, the Elokus element, the oil eliki, must be reduced to such a degree that you can relate it to world. This is what's called oil hashayach al oilams, the oil that can relate to worlds. This oil is essentially the same oil that preceded the tzimtzum. This is essentially, like we say in the person, the chayas that a person has on the lowest level is actually related to neshama. It's not seichel, it's not midas. It comes to Seichel Amidus. But it's Neshama where that Chayas is vested. Neshama is totally above Guf. And there is a draw from the Neshama into the Guf, into the form of Chayas, of one kind of Chayas and another kind of Chayas. The similar thing, the similar Indian is what we're discussing now, Klos Ho'ilms. There was a tzimtzum, and the tzimtzum enabled the Koyach HaGvul, the Kelim to surface. But then, in order that the oil Leki that has a shachas to the world should reveal itself, it's not from the Kelim. There has to be the original source of the oil. That has to be drawn back and illuminate and be mislavish in the Kelim. This is what we are learning now. The underline that begins the oil is soif. Okay, there's a word before in the kirub. Kirub deina some shechayis and meir al achar tzimtzum. Now the oil is soif that was so to speak set aside and removed from the world because of the tzimtzum, and from that same source, then it reverts back and it begins to again illuminate after the tzimtzum. So that the oil that comes after the tzimtzum to illuminate worlds, we are going to discuss it, has a source that is not affected by the tzimtzum. Which means that that through this, the effect of the tzimtzum, kvar nimtzo hanakudo shekeileles kol ha'oil shetzilach ha'ilmas. Kvar nimtzo hanakuda is already present. The nakuda, the point, the contracted aspect, godly aspect, shekeileles, that includes kol ha'oil shetzilach ha'ilmas, the entire oil that is for the sake of worlds. And as we discussed yesterday, and we're going to discuss now, even though oilums are essentially not oil, devoid of oil, but yes, indeed, they represent oil. And then they have to reveal that oil. U'kenoida, as is known, the lifnei hatzimtzum, that before the tzimtzum, leho yonik or klal, before the tzimtzum, there was no cognizance whatsoever of bechinas ha'oil ha'shayach ha'oilus, of the aspect of the oil that can relate to worlds. V'ali de hatzimtzum, and then, as a result of the tzimtzum, by the effect of the tzimtzum, shehu hisalmos ha'oil, which is essentially the concealment of the oil, where you do not sense the oil, nase ha'havdolah, that affects a distinction, a separation, bein ha'pnimis al ha'chitzenius, between the pnimis and the chitzenius. Again, let us get a little bit of a handle and understand the oil that is not shaykh to oilmas and oil that has a shaykh to oilmas. So, as I said, in our discussions we have ample illustration of this principle. We quote the Baal Shem Tov saying, "Mokim sheritzoyna shalodom shomhu." Wherever the rotzen of a person is, that's where he is. Which means that if his rotzen is over there, he's automatically there. Not as things occur in the world, that if you want to be someplace, you may want to be there. But in order to be there, you have to actually cover ground on the in the world, on the ground, make a certain number of steps and certain type of maneuvers in order to get there. You're not there automatically. And yet, looking at it from a neshama perspective, it's a completely different reality. When he's watching, that is what he is. The neshama is not hampered by time and space. And the neshama relates to the elikus element that it relates to. And whatever what elikus elements are related to, that which is expressed by its rotzon, and where this rotzon is, that's where it is. It doesn't have to substantiate the reality of this rotzon. This is the pshat mokim she'asin shalom shomhu. In world, this is the primary difference. In world, everything that you conceptualize, in order for it to have place, to have the recognizance of the world, you have to substantiate it with worldly parameters. It doesn't happen automatically. This is the oil hashayach aloiliness. In other words, on the moral perspective, the place where a person, where he wants to be, this is what he's going to pursue, and this is where he's going to get to. It's a completely different statement than saying this is where he is. As a matter of fact, Rashi brings down, the Gemara says, the derech she'odom reisa bo melichem oisei. And the path that a person wants, that's the path upon which he's being led. Bilam and so forth. This is talking within the worldly parameters, worldly context. This aspect, prior to the tzimtzum, did not exist for all practical purposes. Did not exist.
What does not exist?
This aspect of getting there. I'd like to have a very simple handle of things. You're a guest in somebody's home. Even if it were just for a meal, when you have to find your seat at the table. The minute you enter this room, you are his guest. You don't become a guest when you find your seat. Correct? But that being his guest at that stage has not yet settled, so to speak, in the world. Then subsequently you actually have to go and find your seat. This is called Islapshus in the world. But the phenomenon of being his guest is already there. So if all you're interested, in other words, if you are at that stage where you're concerned, where you're relating to being his guest, you're a guest as soon as you enter his home. If you want to participate as a guest, then you have to find your seat. That's on a different level. Why? In order to participate, you have to find your seat, because this is already on a worldly scale. Okay, let's leave that for a moment. So this is what he says, that Ali they had tzimtzum. Prior to the tzimtzum, the oil hashayach al oilam simply didn't exist. Now they had tzimtzum, shuhi samos oil, as a result of tzimtzum, which is the concealment of the oil. Nase ha-havdolah was affected the havdolah, the separation between the pnimis and the pnimis and the chitzenius. Let's take this illustration of the guest coming into the home. The pnimius of this phenomenon and the chitzenius of this phenomenon. The pnimius of this phenomenon, I'm in your home. We're together. And that happens automatically, instantaneously. Then there is another level completely. This is called the chitzenius. You have to sit down, have a meal together. This pnimius translates in this chitzenius. And even in the chitzenius, when you're having a meal together, as been discussed, this mashal, it is the togetherness that counts. It's not the meal. It is still the host-guest relationship that is primary, not the meal. But there, the host-guest relationship has been translated at the worldly level, not on a neshama level, on the human, purely human level, but on a practical level.
Because you have to find the light, you said. Because the light has to be found. Because this is the light.
Oh, did you listen?
The light.
It has to be translated on the worldly level. And this worldly level didn't exist prior to the tzimtzum. It was all pnimius. Because what is the pnimius of this whole phenomenon of the guest? The pnimius is their relationship, it being together. And that is instantaneous. And they had tzimtzum. There surfaced, there was a separation between the pnimius and the chitzenius, and the chitzenius surfaced. In our mashal, if we want to pursue this for those who are with me, what is the tzimtzum? The tzimtzum is the principle that you cannot enter this home unless you are invited. This invitation points out, hey, there's a pnimius and a chitzenius. You can be and you can be a participant.
So where's the pnimius, which translates before and after the tzimtzum and the mashal?
The pnimius is the being together.
So even before you come in, there's a...
Right, there's a reason why he's inviting him. That's the reality of the human relations. And they had tzimtzum, nasa havdolah between apnimis and chitzenius. That affects the havdolah between pnimis and chitzenius. But the pnimius always remains the pnimius. But now you're more focused on the chitzenius. Or bechinas chitzenius ha'oir, and the aspect of the chitzenius ha'oir, ba b'bechinas nekuda klolis, that expresses itself and comes forward in a form of a nekuda klolis, in a general nekuda. Now it's a nekuda. What's a nekuda means a point. But this is not an isolated point that has only one aspect. It's a point that incorporates the entire mitzvah, the entire cloud. That's what the Rishim is. So, Bom Bekinis and Kuda Klolis. Shemagbil as Ho'er Bichlal. And that and the Kuda Klolis is Magbil as Ho'er. It causes a focus in the oil, a limit in the oil. Bichlal, overall.
Not completely? Is that what Bichlal means? Not completely?
Bichlal means including everything. This is the Chitzenius. The Pnimius cannot be Mugbal. The Pnimius is the reality as it is. You cannot be Magbal the Pnimius. But you can conceal the Pnimius. And then the Chitzenius surfaces. The Chitzenius then is Magbal as Oye Bichlal. What is the Hagbola of the oil? Let's take it in our Moshel. The Rebbe is going to give a Mashpiyah Makavos. As we said, that in the fact that he has to be invited, even though this is exactly the same relationship, but this is saying that there is a chitzonius phenomenon here. Why does he need to be invited? Let's understand. If we are together, we're standing together in the street. We are together. Without Pnimius, absolutely it could be others. But in order for this togetherness to be recognized on a practical worldly level, they have to join together in the same home, in one other's home, and then participate in various activities. This is where the relationship is expressed on the worldly level. The fact that Kol Yisrael Chaverim, Kol Yisrael Achim, that all Yisrael are one neshama, that is true. But you have to translate it in the world. To translate in the world, there has to be tzimtzum, that principle, and it has to be able to translate in a practical manner, in a chitzonius manner. This chitzonius, he says, is Magbil as Oyer Bichlal. Magbil as means it reduces the oil, but it doesn't leave anything out. Which means that it reduces the brightness of the oil. And now the oil can be translated in Kalim. But everything that is in the oil is included in that Hagbola. But on a lower level, on the Kalim level. And now you have to first draw from that Hagbola and reveal it how this is expressed in the Kalim. This is the basic process. Nekuda Klos Shemagbil Zohir Bichlal. In order to bring about that the oil should be revealed from this Nekuda, that is exclusively only, I cannot be drawn from the Nekuda itself, but it is only by the process of Choizer or Meir that the original oil comes to illuminate this Nekuda. The Pnimis, the original oil. So Choizer or Meir. Kinoida b'moshol the mashpia makabel. And as it's known, in the moshol of mashpia makabel. When Chassidus speaks about mashpia or makabel, it is referring to okay, so this is it. Like, mashpia or makabel, in the true sense of the word, is not merely that this one is a mashpia because he knows something that the makabel doesn't know. And then he goes and he teaches it to you. It would be perhaps a more illustrative Indian to describe a mashpia and makabel is like a father and a child, or a teacher and a child. The fact that but the child does not know is not that the child doesn't know what the teacher knows, what the father knows. The child has not even developed to that point of being able to know it. He has to grow up. He has to be helped along to grow up and to be able to relate to these concepts, which means that they're literally in two different worlds. And then the mashpia has to bestow to the makabel that which the makabel has no connection to. And this is what Rebbe says. The seichel ha-mashpia hu nivdal be'erech legamri min ha-makabel. The seichel of the mashpia is totally remote from the makabel. It's not something that he has some information the makabel doesn't have. He doesn't have that perception at all. Ubehechrech, and thus it is imperative, it's a must, sheyalim oir sichloi be'atzmai, that the mashpia should conceal the oir of his seichel, internal to himself. Ki'ilu loy hiskil. He has to come to a point, ki'ilu loy hiskil, as if it were that he did not really comprehend anything. So there's much here to speak about. I just want to go to complete this statement. We'll revisit it tomorrow, mention tonight. And then, as a result of this, then he finds in his own mind the oil seichel that can relate to the makabel. In one word, and then the way the seichel is by the mashpia, like we said originally this morning, that before the tzimtzum, the oil did not need to be substantiated. After the tzimtzum, everything needs to be substantiated by the parameters where the oil is in the world. This is the difference between the oil ha-mashpia and the makabel. The mashpia, his seichel is on a different level completely, and these inyanim that he is going to be mashpia to the makabel, by him is not the mitzvah that needs to be substantiated and explained. Like we say, it's a reality. But then, to be mashpia to the makabel, he has to conceal his oil. As if he never understood, he never had this concept. Why? Because if he had this concept, he doesn't see the necessity of explaining it. Doesn't see the means how to explain it. So he has to reduce his own perception to the point his skill, and then he is able to find the means by which to explain it to the Kabbalah. Okay, we'll pursue it later.
That's like the Or Chayzer.
That's right. Have a great time.
So it's going to be
Remain
here
on
tonight.
hold.
That's
Press
Hashem.
1.
8:30, 8:45.
Your children, you miss Hashem.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mega, the lead that's
Good
peak
point.
here, you said doesn't exist.
I'll be down before.
To say it doesn't, well, Nimsa is one thing. To say it's no peak, it just wasn't recognizable. It seemed like it, for practical purpose, it didn't exist, but no, it wasn't recognizable. But it was there, no?
Yeah, of course it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
He said it didn't exist. I got a lot of people confused.
yeah.
It existed on a certain degree, but not practically. It wasn't. It didn't have to be. It wasn't before the tzimtzum. Like you said about the mashpia, it doesn't have to.
But it exists.
It exists. That's okay. No, of course. No. I said nikr, but
Naked means because, as I said, at the level of the makabel, anything that exists needs to be substantiated.
right.
Disconnect.